Greetings, this is Mr. Nobody talking about the art of making America great again. So we continue with the economy, a little bit about free stuff, and move over to tariffs. So, free stuff. Probably the best example of what there is to say about free stuff is what happens with all the food that gets handed out in school lunches. So, the kid comes in there, he doesn't have to pay anything. He doesn't have to pull money out of his pocket that he would carefully have to have saved. He just simply walks in there, and he's a student. Maybe he might show a card that says he's a student, but that's about it. And there's food. There's a whole everything on here, and maybe some of which he won't even like or be willing to eat. In some cases, he might not even have time. I've seen it where a school would allow about half an hour to lunch. And when you wait in line for 20 to 25 minutes just to get your tray of food, and then you got to bring it back to wherever you're going to sit down with it and eat, and you do, and now you have all this food, and even if you actually seriously intended to eat all of it, you've got 3 minutes before you got to go to class, before you need to be in a classroom, mind you, or you're late. So what do? You wolf down as much as you can, which is not healthy. You can't finish it all, which is wasteful. And of course, to say nothing of the fact that because it's free, and here's the central point of what I'm talking about free stuff here, because it's free, you don't appreciate it. You don't realize that somebody had to pay for it. Some, impacts of various sorts, in terms of our resources, the fertilizer, the animals and plants that went into it all, the sunshine, the water, the soil, the fertilizer, all these different things, the resources, the shipping, all of that stuff, the preparation, all the stuff went into it, and then something like half of it goes to the garbage can instead of feeding them. And it's just so wasteful. That should not have to happen, and it doesn't have to. It's very simple. First, you make sure there's enough time for everyone to finish a meal. Second of all, you put on the plate what the person commits to eat. You commit to eat it, and if you don't want to eat it, then they don't put it on your plate. You say, well, I'll just do this and that and a little bit of this, then you get a plate with this and that and a little bit of the other and nothing else, because you are expected to eat it before you're allowed out of the cafeteria. You see, you are committing to eat it. If you don't want to eat it, you can ask for nothing, and you don't have to eat anything. That's up to you. But you choose, and then you eat. You don't have all this stuff put on there whether you want it or not. And well, here's all this stuff I don't want. I ate the other things. I'm full, and I don't want this, and you throw it away. Because people don't appreciate what's free. They have to pay for it. They should be expected to use it. So that's one point. Now let's move to the other area, and that had to do with tariffs. Now, usually when we think of tariffs, we hear about it in terms of trying to bring the jobs back to this country. Yes, they have that very important and positive effect. But that is really not the key purpose in it. That's simply a good consequence of doing the right thing. And tariffs really are the right thing. See, when we have all of our products, goods, produce, services, all that kind of stuff that we do here, we have regulations. Now, granted, some of these regulations are excessive, they're contradictory, they're redundant, they're messy, they're long and complicated and needlessly complicated. But the basic core of what there is to these things is important. It's what makes what we're doing worthwhile, and that it's quality, that things like how the employees, that they have safe working conditions, reasonable hours, overtime pay, extra if they need to do that, all kinds of different benefits that come with working there. You have these benefits, and you're paying for that. But that's what it means to bring it here, is that you are paying for that. The employer has to do this. It's gonna cost something, but the price is the price you're paying for the fact that people here are working instead of you sending the work overseas. Now, what happens if it goes overseas? Well, a lot of these other countries, they don't have laws about these things. They're very minimal and totally unenforced, if they even pretend to have any such laws. So you don't have to, you can have your workers coming in for long 12-hour days, no breaks. You get paid $2 for the whole day, and dock half of that if they even just take a few minutes out to have a lunch. The lighting can be poor, the ventilation can be poor, the equipment they work with is barely working, and you kind of have to be real careful not to, get a hand chopped off or something in the course of, the machinery and all this kind of stuff. And they don't worry about any environmental impact that might involve from what you're doing. They don't worry about whether the product is good or has quality or is safe. They don't worry about any of that stuff. The only thing they're thinking is cheap. So what might be an hour, say $100 of legitimate work for something, and yeah, you'd market a few something percentage above that, for a reasonable profit, etc. You certainly have a right to make a profit, absolutely. But it's something reasonable. It's not like, okay, it cost me $100 to have this thing, and I'm gonna take $500 for myself. No, you can take maybe $25 for yourself or some reasonable amount. A profit is reasonable, but it must be reasonable. But on the other hand, you go overseas where because they don't have all these regulations, or we could do the same thing for $13, because we don't have to pay our workers. We don't have to, see that they have medical coverage. We don't have to see that they've got safe working conditions, and we don't even have to worry about investors because all these things are nationalized, which means they're run by, incompetence that the state appoints rather than persons who have proved their quality and skill in running businesses. All these different kinds of things. And so what ends up happening? Oh yeah, I paid $13 for this. I could have paid $100 to build it here. I only paid $13 there. I think in all legitimate fairness, you should have to pay a tariff of $87 for that thing. So you're paying that $100, whether it goes to all these things here, or whether it goes to the cheap little bit here plus the tariffs you have to pay to bring it in here, so that there is no savings in going overseas. Now, there could still be something you're interested in getting for whatever reason, because maybe we can't make it here at all. It needs resources that only this or that place has, so you have to work. There's going to be things like that. But you're not going to go there simply because it's going to be cheap. That's what has to be done away with. And that's how to do away with it. Plus, okay, you want to buy the $13, for $100 worth of goods and so forth. And let's say you're going to have to pay the $87. And by the way, you still have to pay for the shipping, or any import duties, etc., etc., insurances for all those kinds of things. Deal with such things as, say, shipping problems and so forth, like the longshoremen's strike that was a recent event. But you're gonna have to put up with all of that stuff. So you really have to want what's out there for some reason. Now you're welcome to do that, and maybe for some things it's a legitimate thing, and you do that. But you're not going there to try to cheat basically your own country, your own workers, your own people. And for that matter, you're really not cheating theirs either, because here's the other thing. Those tariffs would probably best be used for things like the foreign aid to the very same countries. Maybe they can't go to direct salaries, but fund things like hospitals for them, and other things that are useful over there. So you are in effect doing something for them that they're not doing for themselves. But you don't just hand them cash. These things have to be done. Well, and then send us the bill up to this amount. And if it's too much, well, some stuff may have to be done next year, or the year after that. And then as we continue collecting more of these tariffs. But that achieves a kind of justice. We can't tell other countries what to do within themselves, but we can give them conditions for dealing with us. that could encourage them to do the right thing. Now, some other country might follow all the rules, maybe even more so. But as long as they're following the rules that matter, there really should not be a tariff. And then it's just a matter of, well, look, I'd rather have a Mercedes Benz or a BMW rather than a Cadillac. Okay, you're entitled to do that. This is your purchasing decision. This is our individual freedoms. You may have to pay for something, but it's yours. You earn the money, it's yours. Well, that's enough about tariffs.